my friend. Why? What's the matter? Why feeling bored and lonely? Look at me. I am always happy. The only reason? I can tell you, it's because I listen to CNT Radio. All the best shows you can think of. The Melting Pot, the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, and the Song Bank. There are also many more new shows to come. Please make sure to visit her website at http://sienna-wordpress.com/sienna-radio. Oh, now I can hear you more cheerful. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Last night, the Penguins beat the Jackets 3-1 in Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. What happened Friday night tonight when they take on the Jackets in Pittsburgh? What happened? Well, we're about to find out. Welcome to a surprise ending episode of Penguins Preseason Post Game. Let's get started and break down quite an entertaining game between the Pens and the Jackets, and get you set up for the Rangers and the Pens this coming Wednesday. Penguins Post Game starts now. You're locked in to Penguins Hockey on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Sidney Crosby and the Penguins play here on the Sports for Beginners podcast. Hey, Showcase scores! The bingo game is ready to roll. Welcome to Penguins Postgame. PPG for PGH. And you'd have to be here to believe it. Here is your host, Scott McGregor. What's going on, Pens Nation? It's a hockey night in Pittsburgh, as the great Mike Lang would say. You know the other word he would say after a Penguin victory? I know I've said it a couple of times already on the program, but it's always stuck with me. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. Well, the Penguins have left the PPG Paints Arena ice for the final time in the 2024 preseason. Now the real deal begins. But before we can get to the real deal, I want to welcome everyone to the Part 2 edition of Penguins Preseason Post Game, as we are surprising you with a Penguins Blue Jackets PPG Paints Arena game recap from tonight's game in Pittsburgh inside of PPG Paints Arena. Hello everyone, welcome to Penguins Post Game. My name is Scott McGregor. This is the second part of Penguins preseason post-game's final preseason post-game show. But Why is that it? Why is that a call? Weren't we finished after the Nationwide Arena game? Well, we decided it's preseason, but why not break down the finale between the Pens and the Jackets? So that's what we're going to do. As always, we're going to kick things off with our head coaches and starting goaltenders. First, for the visiting, at this time, the visiting Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets are head coached by Dean Everson. Dean E. Dean, if I pronounced your last name wrong, my apologies. Dean Everson. Hopefully I have that correct. If I pronounced it wrong, Dean, I apologize in advance. Goaltenders for his team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, were tonight. The starter was the backup in last night's game, number 40, Daniel Tarasov. He gets the start in net for the finale. Yeah, I want to make sure I have that right. So Daniel Tarasov gets the start in net for the Blue Jackets after Elvis Mers-Lincolns got the start in last night's game down at Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio. Backing up Daniel Tarasov is number 73, Jet Greaves. Jet Greaves. Yeah, there we go, Jet Greaves. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Penguins, their head coach is Mike Sullivan. And tonight, Mike Sullivan gave us a goaltending matchup of a counter with number 30, Joel Blomqvist, in at starter, with number 31, Philip Larson, in at backup. So once again, Philip Larson, who was backing up Tristan Jarry in last night's game in Columbus, Ohio. This time he backs up Joel Blomqvist. Alrighty. With all of this being said, quickly before we take our first time out of the program, because we are going to do the period summary by period coming up after our first break of the program. I want to let you guys know during the period summary, which is the scoring and penalties, we will, of course, this is noted in our description. This will be noted in our description. We will have a timestamp for the period. So if we don't take a break after the first period, summary by penalties and scoring, we'll move right along into the second period and then take a break from there. During the third period, we'll get into our 3 stars of the game after the summary. Following that break, we will get into the shake of the game pucks of the game, time permitting. And of course, I'll give you my play of the game. Now, unfortunately, I was unable to check this game out on the ice and watch it visually, but that's okay because my temporary option is always the Penguins radio network, WXDX FM Pittsburgh, which is an iHeart radio station, and the station's identity is 1059 DX. That's 1059 DX. And no, I don't mean DX. I mean the X. To make sure I'm getting things correct. And once again, that is WXDX FM Pittsburgh. and iHeart radio station 1059.x. All right, with that being said and out of the way, we are going to take our first commercial break of the program and hear a word on both platforms, on the ice and behind the benches, and sports for beginners. We are going to take the first break of the program and hear a word from our buddy Nick Blazewitz, who will be back in studio with you tomorrow by the time you're listening to this one. Maybe you're listening to both of these shows by this time, but regardless, we're going to hear from Nick as he has you covered on the Sienna T Radio starting lineup for their Saturday programming. And just before we take the break to hear from Sienna T Radio, here's a look at our Saturday lineup, which is a triple play. It used to be a double play with Samantha and Nick. Now it is Nick, Samantha, and Robert. So, we'll kick things off at 10:30 a.m. in the morning. 10:30 a.m. in the morning. From 10:30 a.m. in the morning to 11:30 a.m. in the morning Central Time. And we'll kick things off on the Eastern side from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. with the melting pot. Of course, in the UK, that is 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern UK time. Not Eastern time, that's UK time. Then Samantha Ash has you for the Classical Cafe from 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. Central Time, and 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. in the UK. Robert Godridge rolls out your Saturday and finishes off your Saturday with the Hourglass from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Central, and 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. in the UK. Remember, after the show, if you're tuning into either of these programs, specifically the one with Samantha and then the one with Robert, which is Robert Godridge's The Hourglass. So we've got The Hourglass right after the Classical Cafe, which is with Samantha Ash. So be sure to check those out. If you're not tuning into The Hourglass and you're in the UK around this time, remember, after 8:30 p.m. at the end of that show, get to bed, especially with your Sunday. We are in the month of October, and we know what that means, hockey fans. Hockey is back. And so is Penguins Post Game. And I hear on the ice and behind the benches that we will have it here on Sports for Beginners, Leafs Reaction. That's right, Leafs Reaction is about to return to Sports for Beginners, the podcast, but only during the games when the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs go head to head. Their first matchup of 3 matchups in the regular season start not this Saturday, but next Saturday, October 12th, 2024. If you want tickets to that game, I'd highly suggest you go to wherever you find Toronto Maple Leaf or Pittsburgh Penguins hockey tickets and grab those tickets now to watch the Pens and the Leafs from Scotiabank Arena on Saturday night, October 12th, next Saturday. All right. We are about 12 minutes into the opening moments of the program, so we're going to take the break and hear from Sienna T Radio right now. We'll be back in just a moment with the first period, penalties, and scoring summary recap on Penguins preseason post game that we're now going to call Penguins post game because the preseason's over. Now it's time for the real deal. We'll talk about it more and what you can expect on Penguins post game this season, over the course of the program. But right now, let's take the break and be right back in just a jiff.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
Penguins 7, Blue Jackets 3. The Penguins sweep their preseason finale 2-game set between the Penguins and the Blue Jackets. And guess what? They did it in really interesting fashion. It's time for the first period. Penguins preseason post game scoring / penalty summary of the first period. So let's get to it, shall we? Let's start with the game opening penalties. And the first penalty of the game would go to Blue Jackets forward. I believe that's a forward. I gotta remember what this dude was playing. All things considered, it was none other than number 67, James Maltesa. 2 minutes for tripping, time of the penalty, 7 minutes, and 28 seconds. Sean Cruelli is going to the box at 14 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 minutes for cross-checking in the first period. However, the first period would begin with a bang as the Blue Jackets, just like the game last night, get the game's early lead. MP with his first goal of the preseason quickly gives the Jackets the opening goal lead. That's number 82. Michael P. Hopefully I have that right. Again, apologies if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. First of the preseason for him. Number 67, James Maltesa, with his first of the preseason as well. First of the game, rather. Game time goal is 4 minutes and 25 seconds. But also on the assist was number 81. SS. Stanislav S. His first of the preseason. Again, time of the Blue Jackets' first goal 4 minutes and 25 seconds. They would score a few minutes later, but really only a minute and 5 seconds later or so, with Cole Clayton picking up his first of the preseason, assisted by Denton M. Denton Matejchuk, his first of the preseason, and by number 7, John Cruerly, first of the preseason for him. Time of the goal, 5 minutes, 5 seconds. Okay, so the Jackets are on top of the Penguins, 2-0. It's 2-0 Pittsburgh. Columbus, excuse me. Pittsburgh is behind, 2-0. Not for long, just before the first penalty of the game was called, number 55, the former Toronto Maple Leaf, Noel Acciari, gets on the board with his first goal, I should say, of the game and of the night and of the preseason. That puts the Penguins on the board, assisted by number 13, Kevin Hayes, first of the preseason and of the game. Cody Glass on the assist as well, his first of the preseason and the game. And time of the goal was 6 minutes, 27 seconds in. Next guy to score. Penalty on Columbus. And the Penguins take advantage of that 2-minute minor for tripping to James Maltese, with Ricard Raquel picking up his first of this preseason's game, a PPG for PGH, and the Penguins have tied the game. A PPG for PGH, which is short for a power play goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But in short, a power play goal for Pittsburgh, assisted by some of the usual suspects we would see. Number 87, captain Sidney Crosby, and number 58, Christopher Letang. Both have their first of the preseason and of the preseason game. Time of the goal, 7 minutes, 35 seconds in. Before we take a break from this breakdown, now that we're through the first period, let's remind you of tonight's officials. Tonight's officials for this game on Sportsnet Pittsburgh and Sportsnet 1. If you're in Canada, you could catch the game on Sportsnet 1. Furman South and Brandon Balladina were your referees. CJ Murray and Jesse Marquise were your linesmen for this game. Not playing in this game for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Jack Johnson, James Van Riemsdyk, Eric Goodbranson, Boone Jenner, Stefan Mathieu, Damian Severson, Peter Quinsville, John Monahan, Elvis Merzlinkins, Zach Werenski, Ivan Provorov, Justin Danforth, Curtis Hall, and the list goes on. For the Penguins not playing in this game, just to name a couple, Erik Karlsson, Brian Rust, Matt Nieto, Ryan Segala, Ryan Segala. Hopefully I have that right. My apologies, Ryan, if I pronounced it wrong, the last name. Tristan Jarry is also not playing in this game, with Alex Nedeljkovic, B.I., Ryan Shea, Dan Renouf, Joona Kopieni, Joseph M., Nathan C., Emil Bemstorm, Philip Carl, Jonathan Gruden, Samuel Hode, John Ludwig, and more. All right. So those are some of the scratches, just to name a few, because the list could go on and on and on. But we would be here all night. Coming up after this word from the Take Another Look podcast, also on both platforms. Every one of these commercial breaks will be on both platforms. We will hear a word from Take Another Look, the podcast, before we get to the second period. And given the fact that there was no penalties called in the second period, we'll move on after the break from the second period scoring to the third and final period, penalties and scoring. All of that coming up next on Penguins Post Game. But before we do, just to get it out of the way, how did the Penguins and the Blue Jackets fare this time after 20 minutes in terms of the shot? Well, the Columbus Blue Jackets came to play with out shooting the Penguins 13-6, which means they led the Penguins by 7 shots at the end of the first 20 minutes of play. So the Jackets are ahead of the Penguins by 7 shots on goal after 20 minutes. But the score, however, which matters, is all knotted up at even Steven, with the Penguins having 2 goals scored and the Blue Jackets with 2 goals scored. So 2 goals each. 4 goals to a side, 2 to the Penguins and 2 to the Jackets. All right, when we come back, how the final shots on goal were tallied in the second period and third period, plus second period scoring, and no penalty summary for the second period in this one, but the second period scoring that will lead to the third period scoring and penalties. It's all coming up next. We'll even reveal tonight's 3 stars of the game, all of that, right after this word on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners from our friends at Take Another Look podcast. Every Wednesday, not Friday, every Wednesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on Voices for Ability Radio, and then available wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, we want to let you guys know that you can also catch Beyond the Bong with Jocelyn Dorr, a good friend of mine, on her podcast, Beyond the Bong, every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. only on Voices for Ability Radio. And as the tagline is always said, Voices for Ability Radio, all abilities, all the time. All right, back after this for the second period and third period scoring and third period penalties, as well as the 3 stars and more. Still lots more to come, including how are the shows when we get to the real deal on Wednesday going to work? You're going to find out all of that before the show is up. Penguins Post Game continues right after this from Take Another Look.
Take Another Look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. Two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
The final score of the hockey game tonight between the Penguins and the Blue Jackets was 7-3, but after 20 minutes, it was all knotted up at even Steven, 2-2, between the Penguins and the Blue Jackets. The Penguins 2, the Blue Jackets 2. It was a 2-2 tie after 20 minutes. So, what happened in the second period? And did the Penguins continue to run the game against the Blue Jackets? Well, one thing's for sure, they certainly turned the tide in that second period, getting 3 goals early in the second period. Well, okay, maybe the first 2 were early in the second period, but the third goal came a little late. And then Columbus quickly answers back. 3 goals that were scored by the Penguins in that second period. And then they answer with another one of their own to make it 6-3 Penguins over the Jackets at the end of 40 minutes. But anyways, here's how it went down. Here's how it all went down. Of course, as I said, no penalties to speak of in the second period, which means we are on the fast track to the regulation time period after we talk about the exciting second period for the Pens and the Jackets. And it all began with guess who? This guy had a hat trick in one of the games the Penguins played. Well, actually, he was on a hat trick watch. One of the players of the Penguins had a hat trick in one of these preseason games. So I would expect a couple of preseason hat tricks to happen in the regular season. We'll see what happens. Anyways, let's break it down. So, it all began with number 18 of the Penguins, the former Oiler, Jesse Puljujarvi, with his first of the game. Not sure really where that is of the preseason, but first of the game for him. Assisted by number 20, Lars Eller. First of the game, because he had 2 assists in this game. He also scored a goal in this game. And he scored twice, too. Well, actually, you know what? Lars Eller's second assist of the game came on the Rutger McGorty goal. But we'll get to that in a second. Lars Eller's first assist of the game comes on the Jesse Puljujarvi goal that gets the Penguins ahead 3-2 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Marcus Pettersson picking up his first assist of the game and maybe preseason. Time of the goal, 5 minutes, 54 seconds. The Penguins continue and they go up by 2 goals here. It's now 4-2 Penguins. As just a few minutes later, Rutger McGroarty has his first goal of the preseason and first goal as a Pittsburgh Penguin. Time of the goal, 6 minutes and 5 seconds. That was assisted by Jesse Puljujarvi, his first of the game. And, of course, his second of the game, Lars Eller, second assist of the game and of the preseason, I believe. So you know what? Whether or not it's your second assist of the preseason, your first goal of the preseason, it doesn't really matter to me right now because the preseason doesn't matter. The preseason doesn't matter. In any case, after that goal, the Penguins are on top 4-2. And just a few moments later, the former Maple Leaf does it again. Noel Acciari hits his second goal of the night, second goal of the game, and the preseason probably. Depends on how you look at a stat. Depends on how you look at stats, rather. But this is unassisted, and guess what? The Penguins are now up by 3. It's now Penguins 5, Blue Jackets 2. The Penguins up by 3 now. Penguins 5, Blue Jackets 2. Not so fast. Kent Johnson answers very, very quickly with an unassisted goal of his own. And that makes it 5-3 Pittsburgh. 5-3 Pittsburgh. As Kent Johnson gets one back. And then, speaking of getting one back, Lars Eller, first goal of the game to add to his total. And Rutger McGroarty on the assist, first of the game. Probably first of the preseason. For Chris Letang, it's his second. It's Christopher Letang's second assist of the game and of the preseason, probably. As the Penguins score after Kent Johnson's goal was scored at 13 minutes and 15 seconds. Noel Acciari's goal after the goal by Rutger McGroarty at 11 minutes and 36 seconds, So again, 11 minutes and 36 seconds for the second goal of the game for Noel Acciari. Kent Johnson with his first goal of the game and the preseason at 13 minutes and 15 seconds. Both are unassisted, and then Lars Eller assisted by Rutger McGroarty and Chris Letang. The goal comes out at 14 minutes and 10 seconds as the Penguins go up 6-3 and back up by 3 after Kent Johnson's goal got the Blue Jackets within 2 in the second period. After 40, it's the Penguins 6 and the Blue Jackets 3. Again, no penalties called in the second period, so we move on to the third period, and this is a point where our timestamp will take effect. So we move on to the third period. Let's move it along. Before we do, the stats after the second period for the Penguins and the Blue Jackets in terms of shots on goal. 10 shots on goal for the Penguins and 4 shots on goal for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, the Columbus Blue Jackets are still leading in the shot totals, but they add from their 13 in the first period. Oh, I did the wrong thing there. They add 4 shots on goal to go up to 17 shots on goal. Meanwhile, the Penguins, who had 6 at the end of the first period, they add 10 on, which means the Penguins would take, yes, they actually get close here. So they add 16 shots on goal. And let's just double check here. 13 shots on goal for the Blue Jackets in the first period. They add 4 on. So it's a 1-shot hockey game. The Penguins trail by just 1 shot on goal after the 40 minutes of play in the second period. So now we're through 20 and we're also through 40. Here is our third period. The shot total was 12 for the Blue Jackets and 9 for the Penguins. We'll get to the final total of those shots. And then using the calculator I have on right now, we'll calculate just how bad the Penguins were outshot by the Blue Jackets. And honestly, I don't think they were. I just did the calculations now, and you won't believe it, but they were not outshot by the Blue Jackets at all. They only trailed the Blue Jackets after the third period by 4 shots. 4 shots on goal. All right. So we got that out of the way quickly, but let's get to what really matters. In the third period, the regulation time period, the Penguins take the game's first penalty as they get called for hooking. Ricard Raquel getting called for hooking. 2 minutes for hooking. That's number 67 of the Penguins, Ricard Raquel. He is getting called for hooking against Cole Sillinger. That was 26 seconds into the third period. And the Blue Jackets get the game's first power play in the third period, as we see the Penguins go on the penalty kill for the first time tonight. And then Michael Bunting will head to the box at 9 minutes and 25 seconds in. Time of the penalty for him, 9 minutes and 25 seconds. Time assessed to his penalty, 2 minutes also for hooking. This one against Trey Fix Wolonski. Trey Fix Lolansky. Wolonsky. There we go. Okay. If I pronounced it wrong, I apologize. I think I got it right the first time, but I just did that to double check. And I see on my closed captions here, it's probably not exactly the way I felt it there. But you know what? That's okay. We're going to get there. Anywho, James Maltesa and Michael Bunting each receive minors for roughing. 2 minutes for roughing. At 16 minutes and 45 seconds. That's number 67 for the Columbus Blue Jackets, receiving a 2-minute minor for roughing. And Michael Bunting, number 8 on the Penguins, receiving 2 minutes for roughing. Only here's the thing. Michael Bunting's roughing call wasn't against James Malatessa. It wasn't against James. It was against Trey Fix Wolowonsky. And yeah, well, interesting. That's very interesting to me. Anyways, both penalties occur at 16 minutes and 45 seconds. All right. With that being said, no introduction for this. We'll try to get that to you on Wednesday's show for the 3 stars of the game. But it is time for the 3 stars of the game. And we're going to start with our 3rd star, which is Penguins forward right wing, or RW for short, as the short form for right wing. Number 18, Jesse Puljujarvi. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in the game. 2nd star is Penguins right wing forward number 2, Rutger McGroarty. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Inquired there. And so, yes, so it's Jesse Puljujarvi and Rutger McGroarty for the first 2 stars. Those are the 3rd and 2nd star. And your 1st star, this is very well deserved. I actually like this pick for the 1st star. The 1st star of this game is number 20, the center for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Lars Eller. 2 assists, 2 goals, which equipped to 4 points on the night for Lars Eller. So your 3 stars of the game, Lars Eller, Rutger McGroarty, and Jesse Puljujarvi. Lars Eller, Rutger McGroarty, and Jesse Puljujarvi are your 3 stars of the game. All right. Before we take a break and get down to the shake of the game, and among other things, game pucks of the game, we're going to go ahead and get to the game stats as well to kick off that next segment. But before we do, what was the final totals, the final total shots on goal for the Columbus Blue Jackets? Number 29. It was 29 shots on goal for the Columbus Blue Jackets in this game. And for the Pittsburgh Penguins, the final total shots on goal, 25. So once again, it is the Penguins who finished the game with 25 shots on goal, and the Blue Jackets who finished with 29 shots on goal. The rest of their stats right after this from our friends over at On the Ice and Behind the Benches here on Sports for Beginners. And we'll take another word from Sienna T Radio on the Ice and Behind the Benches. Don't go anywhere, because following our next break, which will be a 30-second timeout, with another word on both platforms from Take Another Look, the podcast, we are coming to you live with what you can expect on Penguins Post Game for 2024, regular season. What you can expect for that regular season of the 2024-2025 season coming up after the word from Take Another Look. But first, a word on Sports for Beginners from our friends at On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and a word from not Take Another Look. I was going to say not Take Another Look. I know what I meant. I meant to say our friends over at Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Why not check out Sienna's website by heading over to siennat.wordpress.com/siennat-radio. Once again, go over to siennat-radio. So once again, go over to siennat.wordpress.com/siennat-radio. All right. With that being said, we'll take those words and be right back with the shake of the game pucks of the game, my thoughts on this game, and much more when Penguins Post Game continues. Stick with us.
Sienna T Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on Sienna T Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on Sienna T Radio.
7-3, the Penguins beat the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they finish off the 2024 preseason, with a nice record of 3-0. Not too shabby for the Pittsburgh Penguins, considering where things kind of were. I mean, if you look at CBS Sports, I hope it was kind of corrected there. The Senators were the home team. The Penguins were the road team at that Kraft Hockeyville game. But nevertheless, the Penguins pick up that W. They saw that the Penguins lost that game 5-2 to the 5-2 to the Ottawa Senators, but they actually won that game 5-2. All that being said, we've got a couple of things to do before we close out our part 2 surprise episode of Penguins Blue Jackets here on Penguins Post Game. One of those things we're going to do is what you can get into right now on the Discord server that we have, and as well as by email. And that is, drum roll please. Okay, we don't really have a drum here, so I have to find a ringtone that I can play for the drum roll. But I just use my my hands or my gestures or whatever you want to call them to do our drum roll. But anyways, it is time for the shake of the game. That is one of the first interactions you can do on the Sports for Beginners Discord server. All you have to do while you're on Discord is go to our server and then go to our channel, Penguins Post Game Show Interactions, and provide us with your play of the game, shake of the game, 3 stars of the game if you don't like where the 3 stars are for today's game or any game during the regular season. And of course, game pucks of the game. We'll get to the game pucks in just a moment. But right now, it gives me great pleasure to announce the shake of the game right after this quick introduction. Let's go ahead and play that introduction right now. Now it's time for the shake of the game, where we find out who stood out in tonight's hockey game. So let's find out who stood out in this one and who just might need a little pick-me-up. Well, who just might need a little pick-me-up? I could think of a few players that might need a little pick-me-up from this game between the Pens and the Jackets. But let's start with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we're going to give, because this is the last game of the preseason, even though it's a game that doesn't matter, we're going to give 2 shakes of the game to each team. So 2 players are going to get a shake of the game for their respective team. We're going to start with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So first of all, I want to give credit where credit is due to some of their goal scorers. And right now I want to give credit to Kent Johnson, who got a goal when he absolutely needed to, given the fact that the Penguins were already ahead 5-2 in the second period, and it could have been 6-2 had the score of Lars Eller. Yes, I believe Lars Eller was the guy that scored there last. Yes, he did. Yes, it was Lars Eller who did score first. If he had scored before, the Blue Jackets scored their third goal of the game, it would have been 6-2 Pittsburgh against Columbus. Pittsburgh 6, Columbus 2. That's what it could have been had Kent Johnson not scored before Lars Eller scored in this game. But it is what it is, and it was 6-3 after 40 minutes. As it was the Penguins 6 and the Blue Jackets 3 after 40 minutes. Beautiful second period in the penalties summary for both teams. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody took a penalty, and that's good. That's really good. That's really good. That's really good. You know what else was really good, Penguins fans? Both sides of our special teams unit. They scored once in 2 attempts. And the penalty kill did really, really well, going a perfect 2 for 2 as they took things down. And of course, Lars Eller, he got the second goal of his game, but he also got the Penguins' 7th goal of the hockey game. And if this was a football game, you'd say the Penguins won by 4, and they won by a touchdown. Well, actually, they won by 4. They didn't win by a touchdown. But they score a touchdown, and the Columbus Blue Jackets score 3. They score a field goal. Anyways, they win by 4 against the Jackets. And just keeping things back on track here, we're going to give our second shake of the game as a pick-me-up to Daniel Tarasov. I thought Tarasov played nice. I thought Tarasov played really, really nice. I thought Daniel Tarasov played really well this game. Yes, he gave up 7 goals. Yes, he had a goals against average of 7 goals given up. He gave up 6 even strength goals and 1 power play goal. But he did still make, out of the 25 shots he faced, he did still make 18 good saves. Save percentage of .720. And the dude played the whole 60 minutes. I mean, that's what you would expect from a goaltender, even in the last game of the preseason. But you'd probably think that Jet Greaves is thinking, when am I going to be brought into the game? Of course, the backups for Pittsburgh and Columbus were numbers 73 for Columbus and numbers, just to make sure I have them correct, numbers 73 for Columbus and 31 for Pittsburgh. And the goaltending matchup was number 30 for Pittsburgh versus number 40 for Columbus. And as luck would have it, Jet Greaves did not have a chance. No, I said that right. Jet Greaves did not have a I said that right before. Jet Graves did not have a chance to play. Jet Greaves. I'll just say Jet Greaves because that's what it says. Jet Greaves. Yeah, Jet Greaves. He did not have a chance to play in this game, but nor did Philip Larson, unless the Penguins gave him a shot. No, they did not. So Joel Blomqvist played the whole game, 60 minutes. He played the whole 60 minutes, ends the game with a save percentage of .897. Gave up 3 even strength goals. Made 26 saves on 29 shots that he faced. And with that being said, our Shake of the Game recipients, the pick-me-up is going to go to Daniel Tarasov, the starting goaltender for Columbus Blue Jackets. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, that was Daniel Tarasov. And of course, Joel Blomqvist started for the Penguins. But we also gave, for the Columbus Blue Jackets, we also gave a Shake of the Game to this guy right here. I said we were going to give it to Kent Johnson. So who is going to get our second Shake of the Game for the Penguins for this preseason finale? Well, how about we give it to Lars Eller? Lars Eller played really, really well in this game. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, +4. He's only on the ice for 18 shifts and 14 minutes and 28 seconds. 14 minutes and 28 seconds. But the dude played really, really well. 2 of his 3 shots on goal went into the back of the net. Did not have a power play goal. Picks up a hit. Sorry, he did not pick up a hit or a block. But he did pick up a giveaway, and that's never good. That's never good. But you know what? That's okay. It doesn't matter. The real deal is about to begin. So we will see who makes the final roster for the Penguins, who makes the final roster for the Blue Jackets. But just before we get down to the game pucks of the game, and then I get down to everything else, including what you can expect this season on Penguins Post Game for the 2024-2025 season, we are going to get down to, as promised, the remainder of the game stat. So, face-off percentages. The Penguins won 30 of the 51 face-off played out tonight for a face-off percentage of 58.8%. The Columbus Blue Jackets winning 21 of 51 face-offs for 41.2%. So, when you look at it, the Penguins had a better percentage in the face-off dot tonight than the Columbus Blue Jackets. But again, the Columbus Blue Jackets won 21 of the 51 face-off. And the Penguins, again, they win 30 of the 51 face-offs. They do finish, both teams do finish with a penalty minute record of 6 minutes in the penalty box. The Penguins finished with 11 hits, 16 block shots, 19 giveaways, and 2 takeaways. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, they finished with 22 hits, 16 blocked shots, and 11 giveaways, as well as 3 takeaways. So not much to say here, but those are your final totals. And again, your final totals for shots on goal: 29 for the Blue Jackets and 25 for the Penguins. All right. Game pucks of the game coming up shortly. Maybe we'll take a break and get to that. But before we do, just to break things down, actually, you know what? Why don't we take a timeout? When we come back, we will get to the game pucks of the game. And I'll bring up all things about what you can expect on Penguins post game for 2024-2025, for the 2024-2025 regular season edition of Penguins post game. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a break and hear once again from our friends over at Take Another Look, the podcast, on both platforms, On the Ice and Behind the Benches, and Sports for Beginners. Before we wrap up on the other side with a quick summary of what we're going to do this season on Penguins postgame for the 2024-2025 regular season, which kicks off this Wednesday night upcoming on Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. I know we're in 2024, but whatever. I'll just say Wednesday, October 9th is when we get started. Regardless, we'll talk all about it after this word from Take Another Look. You are listening to On the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. Penguins hockey, as in Pittsburgh Penguins hockey, on the Ice and Behind the Benches and Sports for Beginners. We'll be back right after this to wrap this up.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Penguins 7, Jackets 3. Final score tonight from PPG Paints Arena. Final segment of our part 2 of Penguins preseason post game between the Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We've done 2 preseason post game shows featuring the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And the Penguins won them both. They won 3-1 against the Jackets on Thursday night. And then tonight, they defeated the Columbus Blue Jackets 7-3. It's time now to get to game pucks of the game. But before we do, we'll get this right out of the way to get it all going for you. So what can you expect this season in the 2024-2025 regular season edition of Penguins postgame? Well, just like the preseason, depending on how it goes, and we'll have this in the description of the episode, we will have timestamps for each period recap, which will include the scoring and the penalties, if there are any penalties within the period. If not, there will only be scoring during that summary segment, Before we get to the period's summary segment, we will get into breaking down who is the head coach of the Penguins, who is the head coach of the Penguins' opponent, and of course, who are the starting netminders in net for the Penguins and their opponent. In this case on Wednesday, who are the starting netminders for the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers head coach, by the way, is none other than Peter Laviolette. Peter Laviolette. And I'll just say Peter L, just in case I pronounced it wrong. And of course, as you know, Mike Sullivan is the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, who will they start in the regular season opener? Time of the game is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time, and 12:30 p.m. in the UK, 12:30 a.m. in the UK. All right. So that's the start time. 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and 12:30 a.m. in the UK, which is also 1:30 a.m. in the in France. Let me start that again. It is 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 12:30 a.m. in the UK, and 1:30 a.m. in France time. All right. That all being said, after the periods summary, the 3 periods summary that we will do in part in our regular season content, and you'll find that via these timestamps that we will be taking in our description of the episode. During that 3rd period summary, we will not take a break right away. We will actually get right into the 3 stars of the game. And if there is time, unless we take a break, we'll get into the shake of the game, the play of the game, and time permitting, game pucks of the game. And since I see that it is right now 10:57 p.m. Eastern Time, given where I'm recording my show from right now, we will just get to a play of the game for this game. And, of course, just to wrap things up on the brief summary of what you can expect, we are going to let you guys know that after the shake of the game pucks of the game, and the play of the game, in the final segment of the show, we are wrapping up the show, but we're also getting you ready for the next game. That will take effect after the 2nd game of the regular season in that show's end of the program, because The Penguins will not play again after Thursday until Saturday night in Toronto against the Toronto Maple Leafs at Scotiabank Arena, when the Penguins make their only trip to Toronto, because the other two games this season between the Penguins and the Maple Leafs will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and one of them on March the 2nd, 2025, will be an afternoon game at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central, and wherever else, Pacific and in the UK. We'll get into all of that when we're in the regular season. But anyways, here's my play of the game before we wrap up our program tonight with the first 3 of many games we will be covering in the regular season. And this season, we'll do the same thing we did last season, trying to cover a whole whack of Penguins post-game games to try and cover the entire 82-game season. We probably won't be able to do it, but I have faith that if we at least try to get a couple in, we should be able to do another 82-game season here of Penguins post-game. With that all being said, let's move on to my play of the game before we get into the schedule for Penguins post-game for the regular season. All right. My play of the game tonight is going to come courtesy of Rutger McGroarty. Who picks up his first goal as a Pittsburgh Penguin and first of the preseason. And that ultimately makes the score 4-2 Penguins over the Jackets. All right, so that's my play of the game. If you have a different play of the game, let me know. And you can do that as much as you want all year long, even with our time slot for late, last-minute submissions when the show goes live on the podcast feed. With that being said, just before we get into the regular season schedule for Penguins postgame, I want to let you guys know that the Penguins and the Blue Jackets will meet twice in Pittsburgh during the regular season on January 7th, 2025, and March 21st, 2025. But they'll kick things off in the month of November with a visit to Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, where they played last night. On November the 15th, 2024, that's next month on November 15th, 5 days after Remembrance Day. So make sure you check those games out. That is a Friday on November the 15th. And that's part of a back-to-back that will see the Penguins take on the Sharks in, well, this is interesting. It is a back-to-back that will be on the road and then back in Pittsburgh. So we will see. We will see what happens. All right. With all of this being said, as we close in on our wrap up, the first 3 of many games we will be covering here this season for the 2024-2025 regular season is the back-to-back between the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins on Wednesday, October 9th. And then, of course, the game in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena between the Red Wings and the Penguins at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, and midnight in the UK. Time of the Rangers game, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and 12:30 a.m. in the UK. All right. With all that being said, we'll follow up that back-to-back with a visit to Toronto, where the Penguins will take on the Maple Leafs for the first of 3, which have 2 of those meetings between the Maple Leafs and the Penguins in the arena where they play tonight their final game of the preseason, and it was against the Columbus Blue Jackets. PPG Paints Arena will be the site for the final 2 games of a 3-game series between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. But first, it gets going on the first Saturday night of the 2024-2025 regular season on a Hockey Night in Canada, which you can catch on CBC, Sportsnet, and of course locally, you can catch this Penguins game on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, as well as on the Penguins radio network, WXDX FM Pittsburgh, and iHeart radio station 1059 DX. 1059.x. With pregame beginning right after, at least for the Thursday game, pregame beginning right after the Mark Madden show, which is 3 to 6 p.m. 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays on WXDX FM Pittsburgh, 1059 DX. 1059 DX. An iHeart radio station. That's the Mark Madden Show, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays on the X at 1059. That is the radio station for the Pittsburgh Penguins radio network. So hopefully you can tune in whenever possible. This also means that on Wednesday and Thursday, the return of the Penguins content on Sportsnet Pittsburgh, including Penguins Face Off Live at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. No, 7 p.m. Eastern, because it'll be an hour before every game. So Penguins Face Off Live will come your way at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, 3:30 p.m. Pacific. And of course, in the UK, well, if the game's at 7:30 p.m., which is 12:30 a.m. in the UK. That would mean the Face Off Live would be coming to UK fans at 11:30 p.m. in the UK and 12:30 a.m. France time. With that all being said, our first three Penguins post-game regular season games are Penguins Rangers Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Game time is 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Then Thursday night, it's a quick turnaround to Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern as the Penguins go head-to-head with the Red Wings in Detroit. Then, not really a quick turnaround, but we get an off day on Friday. We get an off day on Friday, and then it's a turnaround to tussle with the Toronto Maple Leafs inside Scotiabank Arena for the Penguins, not the Penguins, for the Maple Leafs home opener. Speaking of the home opener, the Penguins home opener is Wednesday night, and the Detroit Red Wings, I think their home opener is the next night after the Penguins play the New York Rangers on Wednesday. They've got the Rangers Wednesday. They've got the Red Wings Thursday when the Red Wings regular season begins. So yes, that is a home opener for the Red Wings. They'll begin the season at home. And they'll meet up with Nashville. They'll meet up with the Nashville Predators in Detroit on the 12th of October. That's next Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then they hit the road and then come back to Detroit in a home-and-home series between the New York Rangers and the Detroit Red Wings. But anyways, for the Penguins, it's a back-to-back to kick off the 2024-2025 regular season with New York and then Detroit. Then they'll play Toronto on Saturday. Not this Saturday, next Saturday night. And then they'll play Montreal on Monday night. All right, with that being said, it's a 3-game road trip, part of a back-to-back that ends in Detroit. Then the Penguins are home for 2 games against the Buffalo Sabres and then the Carolina Hurricanes. And then the Penguins go on a road trip for 4 games, including a back-to-back in Edmonton and Vancouver. And that's also a trio of late-night games starting in Calgary on Tuesday night. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get ready for the Rangers and the Penguins, which is coming up next time on Penguins Post Game. My name is Scott McGregor, and as Mike Lang always says at the end of every Penguins game, when they win a game, that is, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. That is going to do it for preseason content on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and On the Ice and Behind the Benches, the podcast, for Penguins post-game. The real deal starts Wednesday, and I'll be back with you Wednesday for Pens and the Rangers, be sure to check in with me after the game for the first Penguins post-game show of the regular season. The real deal is the Rangers and the Pens at the Penguins home opener Wednesday night in Pittsburgh on 5th Avenue. For now, even though it doesn't exist, even though it doesn't count, I should say, for the preseason, Penguins fans, of course you're listening to this probably on a Saturday, but enjoy your party tonight on 5th Avenue for the 7-3 win over the Blue Jackets in the preseason finale on Friday, October 4th, 2024. It is 11:15 p.m. Eastern Time now, and that means it's time to close this thing down. So, my name is Scott McGregor. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today on the podcast. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. We already said what Mike Lang says, but you know what? It's such a catchy line that I love using. And shout out to Mike Lang. Really love this line that you use after every Penguins victory, that I can't help but keep using it. So, once again, as I said before, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. With that being said, it is never, ever, ever goodbye. It is always until next time. And until then, Penguins fans, we will catch you after the next Pens game. So long for now. And remember that we say loud and proud, let's go Pen. You've been listening to Pittsburgh Penguins hockey on Sports for Beginners, the podcast. And that's it for us for the preseason, but it's only the beginning of Penguins postgame for the regular season. The real deal starts on Wednesday, and I look forward to catching up with you again right after the game. Pens and Rangers coming up next time on Penguins postgame. Let's go, boys. Let's go, Pens. Good night, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. You've just listened to Pittsburgh Penguins hockey on the Sports for Beginners podcast. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners or visit the official Sports for Beginners podcast website. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay tuned. And remember that it is not goodbye, it is until next time. And you'd have to be here to believe it.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map.